Hello and welcome to Lovely English Stories. This story is written for advanced English learners. You can download the PDF transcript of this and other stories as an all-access Patreon on our Patreon page. Ready? Let's get started. B2 C1 English Story. True Happiness. What's the one place or thing that brings you true happiness? Carol contemplated this question as she ate a ready meal and looked out across her company's car park. She was sure she wasn't going to find true happiness in that office, and she was most definitely sure that true happiness didn't involve eating another bland ready meal. Carol had just moved into her new flat with her 8-year-old son, and the property owners hadn't yet finished her kitchen renovations. She had no cooker, no working fridge, and no warm running water. So, for the last week, she had lived off sandwiches and salads at home and ready meals at the office. This didn't please Carol, as she liked to eat a healthy and varied diet, and she particularly enjoyed experimenting with food. Her son, Charlie, was gluten intolerant, so she had to be incredibly careful with what she cooked. She felt very restricted by not having a working kitchen, but she was assured by the builders that it would be completed by the end of the day. She really hoped that was the case. Charlie was already looking forward to having a hot bath and a lovely home-cooked meal. As she ate her tasteless spaghetti bolognese, she daydreamed about what she wanted to make for dinner. She had visions of creating a delicious homemade pie with fresh vegetables and buttered potatoes. For pudding, she really fancied an apple crumble with cream. Charlie loved anything that had apples as an ingredient. He'd be so happy if he could eat an apple crumble while watching his favourite film with his mum. The autumn nights were drawing in, and Carol and Charlie loved to spend their evenings snuggled up on the sofa watching their favourite films. In their old flat, they had a big clear wall, so Carol used to project films onto it. It was better than going to the cinema, as they had surround sound and there were no other people making noises or getting out of their seats and blocking the view. In the new flat, they didn't have that luxury, but they did have space for Carol's amazing new sofa. She had also invested in an up-to-date television. Now all they needed was for the kitchen to be finished so they could really feel at home. For Carol, having a flat that really felt like home would make her genuinely happy. She really wanted to create a space for her son to relax in and enjoy with her. Carol's husband, Louis, had sadly passed away when Charlie was only 4. Since then, it had just been the two of them. True happiness for Carol was always going for long walks with her husband, with Charlie in his pushchair. She loved to endlessly walk and talk with Louis. They would tell each other silly stories and daydream about their future together with Charlie. Now Carol had to find a new true happiness. She would always miss Louis. Any happiness she experienced didn't eclipse her past happiness with him. She was trying her best to create a stable and loving home for both her and Charlie. Carol was interrupted from her thoughts by her colleague, who was making their 7th cup of coffee of the day. She smiled politely and made idle chit-chat, then went back to looking out of the window and thinking about what she would make for dinner. She was so excited to use all her new cooking and baking equipment. She had decided to move flats as she had got a promotion and wanted to have a bigger living space now Charlie was growing up. The flat was a new build and consisted of 2 large double bedrooms, an open living and kitchen area, a bathroom, a small spare room which Carol had set up as a study, 1 ensuite, a lounge, and a large terrace. A lot of Carol's friends couldn't understand why she didn't want to live in a house, but she wasn't a big gardener, and the terrace was big enough for her and Charlie to sit out and do exercise if they wanted to. It was also south-facing, so she could sunbathe in the summer. The sun and warm weather were definitely something that brought Carol immense joy. Having said that, she also loved the autumn, as it was no longer too hot to cook and bake all her favourite things. She was encouraging Charlie to get involved in cooking, and to her surprise, he loved it. He was rather good at it too, though Carol did sometimes get nervous when he was using the oven. She was scared he might burn himself. Carol loved her job. She worked as a volunteer support coordinator for a large cancer charity. It was something close to her heart, as not only her husband Louis, but also her father and uncle had died from the disease. The only thing Carol didn't appreciate about her job was having to go into the office when she could work from home. She liked to go in sometimes when they had team events, or if she was delivering workshops for volunteers, but generally she liked to be in her cozy bubble at home, working from her study and listening to the radio. Carol ate the last spoonful of her ready meal, cleared away her dishes, and made her way back to her desk. She could not stop fantasizing about her new kitchen and the amazing dishes she would cook in it. Back at her desk, she plowed through her work quickly. She felt focused and wanted to get out of work on time so she could pick Charlie up from after-school club. She had a little time to spare and decided to search for some gluten-free recipes online. She realized that a lot of the recipes weren't always as exciting as the things she created for Charlie. She decided that once the kitchen was complete, she would start posting her cooking and baking creations on Instagram to try and help other parents and carers with gluten-intolerant children. On the way to pick Charlie up from school, she stopped off at the supermarket and got all the ingredients she needed to make a gluten-free pie and a delicious apple crumble. She hid the ingredients from Charlie as she wanted it to remain a surprise. Charlie was excited to see her and wanted to get back to the flat to see what their new kitchen looked like. As they took the stairs up to their flat, Carol felt a sense of apprehension brewing inside her. She really hoped the builders had done what they said they were going to do. She opened the door slowly, and there, on the table, was a large bunch of flowers, a bottle of champagne, and a card. Carol almost burst into tears. The builders and the property owners had left the presents to say sorry for taking so long to complete the work. Carol and Charlie were overjoyed. Their new home was so sparkling and new. It really did feel like a fresh start. Carol encouraged Charlie to go to his room and do his homework, while she secretly cooked his favourite dinner. She set the table with fairy lights and a candle. Then she called Charlie. He was delighted. He ate every last bit. He knew what efforts his mum went to make sure the food he ate didn't make him ill, and he was incredibly grateful. After dinner, Charlie helped Carol wash the pots and clear the table. Then they put their cozy PJs on and got themselves comfortable for a night on the sofa with one of their favourite films. They also tucked into the scrumptious homemade apple crumble. As Carol laid on the sofa laughing along to the film with Charlie, she realised that this was her happy place. She didn't need lots of money or a lavish house or a fancy job. All she needed was her family, tasty food, and a good laugh. She decided to take each day as it came and enjoy every second of her lovely life with her son. Where do you find true happiness? Tell us in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed this lovely English story. Thank you for stopping by. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And remember, you can download the PDF transcript of this and other stories as an all-access Patreon on our new Patreon page. See you soon.